My thought was, my back thoughts were, so we're not Hello, I'm Kate Shanley. I am a professor here in Native American Studies, and I want to welcome you to the Native American Studies building. I'm a professor, and I also work for the provost on Native American and Indigenous education. This is the true dedication of this building, to have Oren Lyons here, because he represents for me the Indigenous voices from around the world and the struggles Indigenous people have been having for hundreds of years, but particularly for the last 40 or 50 years, trying to get recognition on the global stage for their rights and as peoples to exist and to thrive, to see the next generation come forward. I think that the most radical thing in the Declaration of Indigenous Peoples' Rights that was passed in 2007 is the right to reproduce. And maybe I see that because I'm a woman, but I believe that what that right stands for is not only the right to exist, but the right to continue to exist and to pass to our children our heritage of who we are. This building came about beginning in, well, it came about probably at the end of the 19th century when this first Indian person came to the campus, the University of Montana, and looked around and didn't see a place for him or herself. And since then, that vision has grown. The Native American Studies program was started in 1970, and I came here when it became a department in 1999. I became the first chair. I'm a Nakota from Fort Peck. My Indian name is Iawakawea, which means Sacred Stone Woman, and it was a privilege to come here and to carry that forward. And that's what we do as Indigenous people. If we're fortunate, we can serve in that way, to take the baton and bring it to the next generation coming along. So this building is LEED certified, which means leadership in energy and environmental design. Unfortunately, they use metal. Platinum is the highest category of LEED, and that's what we have. So we only took down one old tree to build it, and that tree became the center atrium. And Bonnie Heavy Runner was a real advocate for students, and when she died in 1997, they promised to name the building or something in the building after her, and that's why it was named in that way. But one more thing I want to say about the building. When we dedicated the building 3 years ago, I think this is on Salish land, this building. And the University of Montana is on Salish land. And in the design for our opening and welcoming of people to this building, we had a procession. The Salish people from the Bitterroot had been removed through this territory. And we thought it was fitting to have the children from Unkusum, which is the immersion school, lead all the people back into this space that was Salish homeland. And another feature of our opening was to have the veterans, Native American veterans, count coup on the building. And Yes.
Good time.
And this, we're so honored to have Joe Medicine Crow among us. And he was, I think, the first person to count coup on this building. So this building belongs to Indian people. But we have to always continue to occupy it and fill it with joy and life and love for this world that we live in, to keep it going. I want to say one last thing about Oren. Oren has been an inspiration to me since I taught at Cornell in upstate New York. And when I was on the when I was a Ford Fellow, we planned a conference and we wanted to bring him in. And it was kind of the turn for Indians to have a speaker. So I suggested his name. But because he didn't have a PhD and he wasn't a Ford Fellow, we had to make an argument for him. I don't know if he ever understood that. But we understood the depth of his education. And when he came and gave that talk, he told a story. And you have to forgive me because I'm kind of a magpie. I take literary stories and I make my own mess out of them. And what he did that day was he talked about how during the Depression, he would take his gun and hide it. And then the school bus would come and he'd go to school. And he'd get off the school bus before one could see him. And he'd go back and find his gun where he'd hidden it. And then he'd go out in the woods and lie there and wait. Right? He'll tell you a gun would part wrong. And he'd lie there and wait and hunt something to feed his family. And sometimes he had to lie in one spot perfectly still for long periods of time, and birds would come and land on his head. And he had so few bullets, he had to make every one of them count. And so he didn't graduate from high school, but he got another education that included purpose and stillness and depth of vision, caring for others, living for others. So I have the deepest admiration and love for Oren Lyons. He's been a tremendous person in my intellectual life. So I want to welcome him especially to this building. And so this is some sweet glass from Harvard.
Thank you, Kate. Thank you all for coming. This is it's very moving. I had no idea that it would evolve into such a special event for this beautiful place. And thank you for your leadership. And thank everyone here for valuing the Indigenous message to the world. I am Lisa Smith, co-director of Pull Together Now, a grassroots organization robustly connecting people to move the world to balance, place to place, face to face. We are network weavers engaged in systematic transformations necessary to restore environmental, social, and economic well-being for all. Pull Together Now is a direct response to Oren Lyons and the indigenous peoples of the world call to action in support of peace, equity, justice, and reconciliation. Before I introduce Oren, I must thank the many people who collaborated to make this event possible. Sherry Dupuy and Kate Shanley have generously welcomed us into this beautiful community gathering place. The inclusive spirit of this center is fostering the sustainable transition we all aspire to. Special thanks to my co-director, Derek Rain, Marilyn and Don Oliver, Jan Ekstrom, and Judy Morton for attending to all the behind-the-scenes details. This event is being filmed and archived by Ron Shull from the Missoula Community Access Television. This event will be online, and also a DVD of the event will be available from AMCAT. So we've saved this beautiful evening forever in their archive. Special guests tonight include Patty and Willie Stevens of St. Ignatius. They are committed to improving their community on the Flathead Reservation by working with children and families. The Stevens believe it is important to bring elders, adults, and kids together for healthy and fun events that benefit the community and keep tribal cultural traditions alive. They've been hosting Oren this week at the traditional gathering, and I welcome them. Thank you. Sorry, I had to write all this down. I also would like to welcome Julie Kajun, Salish educator and director of the Center for American Indian Policy and Applied Research at Salish Kootenai College, with offices at the college in Pablo. I don't know if Luana Ross was able to come, but she was hoping to attend. She's the president of Salish Kootenai College. It is impossible to adequately introduce Oren Lyons. How does one choose highlights from the 82 years of life of one of the most revered leaders of our time? He is a traditional faith keeper of the Turtle Clan and member of the Onondaga Nation Council of Chiefs of the 6 nations of the Haudenosaunee, or Iroquois Confederacy. A lifelong lacrosse player, Oren was an All-American at Syracuse and founder of the Iroquois Nationals lacrosse team, which just this month placed 3rd in the Lacrosse World Championships in Finland. Oren is an artist, author, historian, and world traveler. He is a tireless, courageous advocate for the rights of the world's indigenous peoples. For over 15 years, he has taken part in the meetings in Geneva of Indigenous Peoples of Human Rights Commission of the United Nations and helped to establish the Working Group of Indigenous Populations in 1982. He serves on the Executive Committee of the Global Forum of Spiritual and Parliamentary Leaders on Human Survival. Montana is special to Oren. In 1977, he helped create the traditional circle of Indian elders and youth, which had its beginnings at a meeting at the headwaters of the Missouri River. Since then, the circle is gathered annually at different sites in Indian country each year. In fact, Oren is here because he attended this year's council, which was hosted by the Salish in our league. More information can be found on the traditional circle at twocircles.org. Perhaps the most important role Oren serves is that of grandfather and mentor and protector of all life on Mother Earth. Indeed, that is the common link to all of us here tonight. We are all just common people with indigenous cellular memory that is calling us back together as a beautiful family of men. Oren's message has always been that it is up to each of us to pull together and move the world to balance, to protect Mother Earth, from which all life is sustained. Please welcome Chief Oren Lyons.
Nawahascano. So I guiso and just that. Anadaga heno, taihuni nei. I said, thank you for being well. It's our greeting. I come from Onondaga. My family's the Wolf. My name is Joet Guiso. And the first thing we do here is anybody here older than 97? Oh, here's the champion right here. There's Joe Medicine Crow, and he's our elder, and he was attending our event and did a wonderful closing today for us, and still maintains his power and his authority and his direction and his strength. And I would just like the delegates that attended our event who are here in this room to stand up for a minute so people can see you. Thank you. These people are all leaders. They're leaders in their own right, and they have responsibility when they go home, as we all do. And so, as I was being introduced, I was being reminded, of the the variety of events that go on around this world that needs attention, and the responsibility that we have to attend those particular events and duties. And this circle is very important because these leaders have a lot of responsibility, just as any leader does. And when they leave their community, for the time that we take, the community suffers at some point. But it is a renewal for us, and our mission is peace. Our mission is equity. Our mission is responsibility and the protection of the earth itself. And we are there to remind all of our people to their ceremonies, their responsibilities to do that, and why they're there, and how important that mission is. And so the levels of age at this meeting is all the way from here all the way up. There's not really an Indian meeting unless kids are running all over the place. Then it's a meeting, because we want the families to be there, and they are. That's one effort that I put a lot of my time into. The other one is, he talked about the lacrosse, the Iroquois Nationals. That's a whole other story. We have some pictures, for you to see. It's 2 hours of talking, pretty dry. And people, for a kid that quit school in the 7th grade, and when they caught me, guy called me a wild Indian. He says, "You wild Indian." They were putting me in a truancy, put me in jail. And I was just a kid. But I knew what he was saying. And he says, "Look at you." He says, "You can't even talk." And I was measuring where I was to his desk. And I figured I get one in anyway, no matter what. And he had a cigar, And he says, "Don't even think about it," he says. But I did make up my mind that time. I said, "I'm going to talk to you. Someday I'll talk to you." He gave me that determination to do something. Because when I used to get off the path and get a hard time, I'd just go back to that time of him with his cigar telling me, "You're just a dumb Indian. You're not going to want that. You can't even talk." That would help me get back. I said, "I'll get that sucker." And so, amazingly, I wind up to be a professor at a university, teaching 38 years at the University of Buffalo, teaching American history. That was fun. Had a very certain slant to it. But it's really what I learned about that was how absolutely uninformed the American public is about the people, the original people of this land. You just don't know. You're just not taught. You just are ignorant of what took place here. on purpose, mind you. It's done purpose. But we didn't know that. You know, when I was in the grade school, I read the same books that people were reading then. And it was all about, gee, we were bad guys. Or one day, every year, we were good guys. And what day is that? Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving. All of a sudden, everybody sprouts a feather, and kids have these paper headbands, and good Indian there. Rest of the time, nah. Well, it's all about land, as you well know. This whole discussion. And the whole adversarial problems that we have over this comes from land. Whose land? And how does an immigrant from another continent come here and tell us that we need a visa or we need a passport in our own land? Or tell us that we need a green card? You know what a green card is? It's for an alien. How can they do that? Do they do that? Oh yeah. So these journeys that I've been on is sort of a runner. I've been a runner for the nation itself. For the council, that's basically what I do, because I did get an education. I did go to the University of Syracuse, and I was very fortunate. And I went there because I could do two things. I could play lacrosse and I could box. So they needed sports people. And the coach, Syracuse coach at that time, Roy Simmons Sr., and I had come out of the Army then. I was back in '53. I was in the 82nd Airborne, and pretty good trooper. Did my share of bar fights, and understood the military, understood we were well trained, 82nd, well trained trooper. So I knew about that. But they didn't like me and I didn't like them. So come time to get out, I got out. My brother stayed in 24 years. Green Beret, all the way back, all the way through. 4 tours in Vietnam, 4. The last one, they tried to kill him because he wasn't going to re-up. They said, Sergeant Lyons, we need you out there. You have all this. He says, look, 24 years, I'm 3 terms, tours. I'm lucky to be alive. I'm done. No, you aren't. They sent him back. 6 months to be discharged, and they sent him right back. Right up front. He's a vet. A good one. Could speak Vietnamese. He's also a lacrosse player. Good one. Anyway, the story meshes. It's an interesting story. In 1957, that was my junior year at Syracuse University, we had the first undefeated lacrosse team in Syracuse University's history. And playing on that team was Roy Simmons Jr. And his dad was very, very happy. Also playing on that team was Jim Brown. Good men have on your side. And also, very good lacrosse player. Very, very good. Come out of Manhasset, Long Island, played lacrosse. We had a team. Undefeated. There was another undefeated team. That was West Point, Army. And I had boxed them, and we had played them every year. But head to head, 2 undefeated teams, 1957. Well, we beat them. 4 minutes left in the game, we beat them. That's how tight the game was. We had Jim Brown, mind you. football players. They were tough. But we won. The other goalie, and we were pushing for All-American honors, of course, and the other goalie was excellent. He was a hell of a goalie, a hell of a goalkeeper. And we both played in the North-South game as partners for the North. And he went on his way and I went on my way. His name was Ray Riggin. Anyway, Lee, my brother, gets sent back. He goes up front, you know, where the sandbags are, and everybody lives down in the ground. When you can hear the fire, you can hear the firefight going on. And he's a vet. Dumps his duffel bag on the bunk, and runner from CQ comes down, says, CQ wants to see you. He says, I just got here. He says, wants to see you right now. He was mad enough to be back there again, but here he was up front. Man with many honors and medals. Angry about the whole thing. He says, they're just trying to kill me, that's all, because I wouldn't re-up. They just sent me back. Anyway, up he goes, still in his dress, and sitting behind there is a bird colonel. A bird colonel is a company commander. That's unusual. Major, captains, colonel, bird. And Lee says, I wonder what he did to be here. Anyway, he says to him, he says, looking at it, he says, what are you doing here? He's looking at his record. And he says, you tell me. He says, you got no business here. He says, I know that. He said, Lyons. He says, you were Indian? He said, yeah. Where are you from? He said, upstate New York, Syracuse. He says, you know a guy by the name of Oren Lyons? Plays lacrosse. Lee says, yeah, he's my brother. I play better than he does, but he plays lacrosse. He said, that was Ray Riggin. That was Ray Riggin. And he says, get your clothes changed. Come right back up here. He opened up a bottle of Old Granddad. He said they were drunk for 6 months. And he says, you are not leaving this place. It's a small world. It's a small world. You just don't know what's going to be coming around. You don't know, so you have to pay attention all the time. Because it is a small world. And so, the story, happy ending for Lee, he said, we had some massive hangovers, but he said, I never went. And he was true to his word, came back. But the story about lacrosse, yeah, that's another one. And we grew up at Onondaga, that's all we knew. Everybody knew about lacrosse. And growing up in the Six Nations, whether you were anywhere in any of the Six Nation territories, you knew about lacrosse. And that was the games, that was our entertainment, that was the way to be. It's also part of the whole life, part of our whole life. It's in our ceremonies. It has a place in a midwinter ceremony. It was played before there was earth. It was played when the earth was covered with water. It was played on the other side. That's how old that game is. It's not a sport for us. It's a game. It's a way of life, and it's taught our people. And so, That's how come I went to school. I could play lacrosse. I was a ringer. I was a ringer for sure. And so we got the undefeated team. I boxed for them. And I got an education. And it was a fair exchange. I was very fortunate. And I recognized that. I recognized the privilege it is to go to a university that most people don't. Privilege comes here. And so when we get a chance to bring our people in, we have to give them somewhat of a break. It's not even, but it's better than how it was. You do, in this time, need education. And in the old days, I remember Chief saying, well, what's the point of sending them to school? They just keep going after, they don't come back. A brain drain on your own territory, because how are you going to use what you learned in school on the nation? Well, we changed that. And lacrosse was a way of life with us. I remember Coach Simmons being a speaker for our Onondaga Nation lacrosse team. I asked him to come down. He's sure. And he said, this is 1949, he said, you know, we could have lost this whole sport of lacrosse across the nation because of the Second World War, when all the athletes went, including Onondaga. At Onondaga, you could only find us guys and the old guys, and everybody else is gone. Probably on every Indian nation the same way. Second World War. He said, but you people never stop playing. So it was old guys and young guys together, we still played. We played, we kept the game going. And he said, you kept it going. He says, university stopped playing, everybody stopped playing. Not Six Nation. We played. And that was an interesting comment that I would never have thought about, because we don't think that way. We just think that's just what you do. Six Nation, you just play lacrosse, that's it. And it's been a powerful element in the development of the game in the world today. And 1983, Roy Simmons Jr., now head coach of Syracuse University, following his father's footsteps, and already having 4 national championships under his belt, says, hey, you guys, he said, what, you think you guys would play Canada exhibition match in our next NCAA finals? I said, I don't know, we haven't been running a field game, and we play box lacrosse. No, field, he said. I said, I'll ask the guys. So I asked them, you guys want to play? We haven't been on a field for a while. Sure, let's play, why not? So he got the team together. 1983, we went to the Onondaga Council, and they called the Grand Council. All the Six Nations came, and they sanctioned us as the national team for the Haudenosaunee. And we went down, and we were severely chastised by, I think it was Johns Hopkins. I forget what the score was, but it's like 24-6 or something like that. And the guys, I said, they didn't like getting beat like that, you know. That's our game. So the next year, in '84, at the World Olympics, which were held in Los Angeles, we said, we're going to go over there, and we'll get a rematch. We call Canada. You guys want a rematch? Damn right. So, okay, so we'll play over there. And we started that whole thing, '84. And if you remember '84, all you older people, Russia boycotted the Olympics that year. Remember that? So we talked to the Olympic Committee, and they said, sure, we support that. You can't play during our event, but just before and just after, we'll tag it right on. I said, good. At Onondaga, we also had, under our protection, a man by the name of Dennis Banks. Anybody know Dennis Banks here? We had him under our wing over there because they were trying to chase him to France. And we said, you're not going to chase our people to France. Come here. Under the Six Nations. And we took him in. And we told him where he was. There's a whole story to that I won't go into. But anyway, Dennis was chafing at the bit because he's very active and he couldn't move off the res, you know. So he says, know what I'm going to do? He says, I'm going to have the longest run. You guys are going to be playing there. He says, I'll organize a team here and they'll run all the way to Los Angeles. And they'll get there just when you guys are playing. It's a good idea. That was the longest run, 1984. Got a poster, big poster. What was said on the bottom of the poster? Return Jim Thorpe's medals. That was the purpose. Return that man's medals. They said they took his medals away under the pretense of, what was that? Professionalism? USA just beat who this year?
Spain.
Were the USA professionals? Every goddamn one of them. Are you kidding me? They took that man's medals. Nobody has ever come close to what that man did in the Olympics. Pentathlon and the decathlon. Two of them. Nobody. They took his medals. And he was a simple man. I have, in my own way of thinking, I have two heroes. One is Jim Thorpe. Been my hero. The other is Tecumseh. Another good man. Both good fighters. Knew what they were doing. They've always inspired me. And Jim, I met him just before he died. He used to come to Onondaga because when he was at Carlisle's school, boarding school, one of the first, we don't want to get into that whole discussion. He used to come up there because we had a lot of our people there and they were teammates. My grandfather played with him, Ike Lyons, Jesse Lyons. And he had friends at Onondaga. And he'd come over, always watch the team. I got to shake his hands, you know. Had a big paw, you know. You're pretty good, he says. Boy, I was just looking at him thinking, did all that. Anyway, here we are, running off to LA, a whole team of people, and doing what we could do to bring the idea of Indian people up into the public eye. And Canada came down, and it just so happened Australia was touring Canada, the lacrosse team. They said, hey, what are you guys doing down there? I said, I'm playing. Can we play? I said, sure. They said, count us in. So here comes Australia. And then England calls from England. I hear you guys are putting up a game. Yes, we are. Are we in or what? I said, come on, you pay your own way, you guys. Said, sure. Oh, we have Canada, Australia, Iroquois, and England. U.S. says, what the hell's going on? We want to play. Said, come on. Uh-huh. And that happened just before the Olympics. And we hosted it. And the night before the games, we had a bulldozer out there trying to level the field, you know. And the guys were all standing out, the coaches were all looking at it next day and saying, we going to play or what? And they said, let's play. We had a great tournament. We had a great tournament, 1984. And we got a little light onto Jim Thorpe's medals. And so the Nationals, we took our lickings. We played every year since that time. And all the times we really were beat. But now, our under 19 men's team went to Finland first part of this July to play in the Men's World Championship. And they medaled, played England for the bronze, Canada played USA for the gold. Whole story there. And so, and in the process, the Iroquois beat the USA. The whole world jumped. Nike called me because they're our sponsor. Nike said, Jesus, you guys, they said, they all jumped. And a video person was going through the crowd. A woman was crying. American woman, why are you crying? Nobody's cheering for us. They're all cheering for the Indians. She said, the other teams are cheering for the Indians. From 1983, 2012. Took us that long to build that team. The next games are in Denver, so you can all go. Denver's right here. 2014, we'll be there. And we're hosting the world's indoor box lacrosse champions 2015, Syracuse, New York, and Buffalo. Please come. Going to be good games. And we've been, I would say, the grandfathers of this game. And we have the respect of all the teams. And they really appreciate the fact that our team comes on and plays. And it's caused a great deal of friendship around the world. We have now, they tell me, they're going to be more specific there, but they tell me 43 countries playing. When we joined the Federation of International Lacrosse in 1987, there was only the USA, Canada, Australia, and England. Iroquois made the fifth. 43. Now, mind you, they can't compete with us. This is all levels. But they're playing. You know, we get word from Kenya. We want to play. We get word from around the world. Everybody wants to play. Play this Indian game. So it's our gift, and we say, good. Respect it. Respect it. That's all we ask. And so when we have these big tournaments, they ask us to perform our ceremony. So we bless the game and the sticks and the players. It's a little different than football. There's an element there that's just a little beyond sports. And it's good. It's good for the players. Young players come to me, I don't care whether they're coming from, well, we got a coach here. This coach, University of Vermont
Academy.
Vermont Academy. He's coaching. Good player right there. And Navajo.
And Navajo.
It's not a Six Nation, he's Navajo. Good player. So that's what we're doing with that. That's another major interest of mine. I'm the chairman of the board of the Iroquois Nationals. It cost us to get our team to Finland $300,000. That's the budget. Next year, it's going to cost us a little less. Denver's not going to be so expensive because it's in-house, more or less. And see, we're hosting. Maybe we can make some money. Some of the indoor box lacrosse crowds are up to 18,000, 20,000. I know we can fill that arena in Buffalo. I know we can. So we're bringing this game, our gift to you, to all of you, to your sons. Your daughters are playing now. At Onondaga, we're very traditional. Woman can't even touch a stick, never mind play. But women are playing around the world. That's their business, not ours. But anyway, it affords our players an opportunity to be recruited. We're being recruited by University of Virginia, we're being recruited by Johns Hopkins and all, you name it. It gives us an opportunity to move our children on. And I know he's looking for players. And so it's been positive for us, and I just wanted to add that as one of the other elements that we talk about. And we have some shots of that game from Finland here. Just got it. We're putting together now a documentary on the Iroquois Nationals and just what it takes. And so this is now first part of it. So we had our documentary put something together to show the chiefs, see whether we're going to follow through for the next 3 years on this. But anyway, we got it here for your viewing. And before we go into that, I'll say the next big interest we heard mentioned here was the work at the UN, the United Nations. That's been a tough fight. The leaders have been the Six Nation, the Haudenosaunee. We had a meeting in Lakota country, and we were set to make an event or try to get to Europe, try to get to Geneva, and bring the Indian issue, the indigenous issue, into an international forum. And we worked hard. It was very difficult. And it so happened that year that on our way to the planning meeting, one of our leaders died, and we had to stop, turn around, go back. And so we didn't make the trip out into Lakota country to finalize the process of going over in the fall of 1977. And then we got caught up in our business. And we got a visitor somewheres in July from the West. He's a runner. His name was Russell Means. And he said, I've been sent by our council to wonder why you're not at our meeting and to remind you that we need your presence in this event. And it was his job to talk to the Six Nation Grand Council about that. And quite an event right there. But he said at the end, he said, if you don't go, we might as well not all go. He's talking about leadership. And he's talking about the history that we have prior to all of this, how long we've been talking with the colonists and the colonies and the Revolutionary War. And Ben Franklin, those guys knew our names. They knew our leaders' names. We worked together. You don't know that. You never taught that. You never heard what Ben Franklin said. You never heard what George Washington said. Well, we're going to teach you. That's another part of my effort, so that you have a rounder understanding of who you are and where you come from and the responsibility that you have. And you can't react to that if you don't know your own history. How can you? So we're going to try to round that out and teach you what nobody else will. But we went to Geneva, 77, and began a long battle there for recognition, as was pointed out here, on identity. Identity is fundamental. And it's brought us all this way around today to talk about the whole subject of balance. How do you bring things back into balance? 7 billion people in the world today. 1950, I was a kid, I was 20 years old. 1950, 2.5 billion people in the world. You do the math. Do the math. 7 billion now. That's a compound. That is not just growing, that's a compound. And continuing to compound. Finite resources, finite water, finite land, finite everything. Are you paying attention? When I was this kid with my shotgun in the weeds, I was looking for rabbits. They were the easiest ones to get. Sometimes I'd see them sitting there and I'd go by, leave him there, and I'll come back for you after. I don't want to carry you all day. Just stay there. I know you stay there. Not go out. And some years the rabbits would be just all over. And then some years, Jesus, you really had to look to find them. And that's nature, keeping a balance. It's about every 4 years that this rabbit population gets like that. And then a disease comes and wipes them right out. And they're right down to that. That's nature keeping balance the way nature does. We're under the same rules and laws of that rabbit. We're flesh, we're bone, we're blood, we need water, and we need food. And if you put yourself into a position where you challenge those rules and those laws, you will find very quickly how they prevail. Without mercy. No mercy. Don't look for mercy. It's not there, not in nature. Only rule, only law. That's what we know about. That's what this man knows about. Knows the law. Knows the rules. You challenge nature, you lose. Period. No discussion. That's where we are. Balance. What are we going to do about this? What are we going to do about this? What is it that makes Indian nations different? And we had this discussion in our circle. Okay, if I say something about that? All right. I told you that I was from Onondaga, and I told you my family was the Wolf. Every one of these men have a family. These women who are here, they have a clan. And that clan is part of nature. And if you get into the Hopi clans and the Navajo clans, Wind Clan, you just keep going. But what are they? They're your relative. So the wolf is my relative. That's my family. When I see what's happening to the wolf, it's only a matter of time before that happens to us. That's all. You going to do that to the wolf? Sayonara. It's going to happen to you. It's nature. So what is this relationship then that we have? This relationship is one of respect. So you don't do that. And my question, which I posed to this council, is the crisis that we're facing today. How in the world are we going to educate 7 billion people to their relationship to the earth? That's a question to you. It's your survival as well as mine. I'm asking you to think about that. How are we going to do that? To get some common sense, and not dollars and cents, common sense in this process of life that we have been given. That's the discussion on the table here. You're concerned for your children. You're concerned for your children. You should have concern for your children. But I found out, no, it doesn't necessarily follow. It was an amazing thing. I'm pretty old by this time and pretty much heard just about everything. So going to my doctor, and he's talking about something we're going to show you a little bit about too, and come back to what can we do in balance. Anyway, it's an enterprise. He thought it was brilliant. He says, I want to get into this. He says, I want to buy stock. I said, well, you can do that. I said, just one. For your name, or one for your family, one for your daughter. One. You can't buy 2, you can't buy 10. One. And you can't cash them in. You can't cash it in for either 7 generations or until we cash in. It's going to your children. This is for your future. And this was a doctor. And he says, what the hell? They can take care of themselves. He got angry. This is a doctor who was a very nice man, as far as I knew, all the time, and I was dumbfounded. I'm not usually speechless, but that my mouth dropped open. I didn't say anything more to him, but I was struck by his attitude towards the welfare of his own children. Didn't have any. They can take care of themselves. I took care of me. They'll find a way. Will they? We don't think that way. We talk about 7 generations. And we're not talking about the 20-year generation. We're talking about the 80-year generation. 7. Looking out for those faces coming. That's responsible leadership. How are you going to get that kind of thinking in today's circumstance? That's a question to you. It's your boat you're paddling. And remember, no mercy, no discussion, no habeas corpus, no good lawyer, no nothing. Just the law. That's all. Obey it, or else you will suffer in direct ratio to your violation. Direct ratio. Come right back at you. That's what we're looking at right now. When the peacemaker first came to the Six Nation over 1,000 years ago, he said, we're going to base this confederation on 3 principles: peace, equity, and the power of the good minds. Be united. Be united. One thought, one mind, one body, one heart, one spirit. To be united. The good minds, and he was specific. You have to say good minds. Because as you well know, every day we get up, we can be the worst enemy of the world. We have that option every day. And every day we do something that maybe we're not very proud of. But that's our option every day. times 7 billion, times ignorance, times short time. We're in a time crisis now. Global warming is here, and it's moving. In our meeting, so what's that out there? Oh, that's smoke. Fires. Way back, 1980, somewhere around there. We're sitting around a council fire, Lakota country. Some of the old chiefs sitting there. Fools Crow, Matthew King, Starr, Chief Shenandoah, and Thomas Banyaka from the Hopis, and Philip Deere from the Muskogees. Real powerful